Unbelievable message.
இன்றைய சதனாம அர்ச்சனை நமது கோவில் பக்தர்கள் நலன் விரும்பிமான ராகவேந்திரன் பிரபு and கிரேஸ் ரூபராணி ராதிகா மாதாஜி, திருமதி தேன்மொழி செந்தில்குமார், திருமதி ஆண்டாள், கிரேஸ் சீத்தல யமுனா தேவிதாசி மாதாஜி, கிரேஸ் கலாவதி தேவிதாசி மாதாஜி, கிரேஸ் சாந்தாமணி தேவிதாசி மாதாஜி ஆகிய பக்தர்களுக்காகவும் பல குடும்ப உறுப்பினர்கள் ஆரோக்கியம் மற்றும் பாதுகாப்புக்காகவும் பகவான் சிஷார் நஷ்டம் நமது சிறப்பு பிரார்த்தனை. ஓம் அஞ்ஞானாதிமிராந்தஸ்ய ஞானாஞ்சனசலாகயா சக்ஷுருன்மிலிதம் யேன தஸ்மை ஸ்ரீ குரவே நமः. நமோ விஷ்ணுபாதாய கிருஷ்ணப்ரஷ்டாய பூதலே ஸ்ரீமதே பக்தி வேதாந்த स्वामिनिधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी भाषात्यधिशदारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय नरसिंह श्री नरसिंह जय जय श्री नरसिंह प्रह्लादेश जय पद्मा मुखपद्मा भृंगा उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं जलं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं जनं भद्रं मृत्युमृत्युर्नमाम्यहम्. ओम नरसिंहाय नमः. ओम महासिंहाय नमः. ओम दिव्य सिंहाय नमः. ओम महाबलाय नमः. ओम उग्रसिंहाय नमः. ओम महादेवाय नमः. ओम संभजाय नमः. ओम उग्रलोचनाय नमः. ओम रक्षाय नमः. ओम सर्वसुदाय नमः. ओम श्रीमनाय नमः. ओम योहानंदाय नमः. ओम त्रिविक्रमाय नमः. ओम हरिणे नमः. ओम कोलाहलाय नमः. ओम चक्रिणे नमः. ओम जयाय नमः. ओम जयवर्धनाय नमः. ओम पांजनाय नमः. ओम परब्रह्माय नमः. ओम अघोराय नमः. ओम घोरविक्रमाय नमः. ओम जलान्मुखाय नमः. ओम ज्वलामालिने नमः. ओम महाज्वलाय नमः. ओम महाप्रभुवाय नमः. ओम नीलिलक्षाय नमः. ओम सहस्राक्षाय नमः. ओम दुर्निरीक्षाय नमः. ओम प्रतापणे नमः. ओम महादंसाय नमः. ओम युद्धप्रज्ञाय नमः. ओम संतकोपिने नमः. ओम सदाशिवाय नमः. ओम कन्यकशिभूतंसिने नमः. ओम दैत्यदानव पंजनाय नमः. ओम कुणभद्राय नमः. ओम महाभद्राय नमः. ओम बलभद्राय नमः. ओम सुभद्राकाय नमः. ओम गरुडाय नमः. ओम विगुलाय नमः. ओम विगर्ताय नमः. ओम सर्वकार्तिकाय नमः. ओम सुषुमाराय नमः. ओम त्रिलोकात्माय नमः. ओम नीचाय नमः. ओम सर्वेश्वराय नमः. ओम विभुवाय नमः. ओम पैवरंबराय नमः. ओम दिव्याय नमः. ओम अच्युताय नमः. ओम कामिने नमः. Om Madhavaya Namaha, Om Adavpujaya Namaha, Om Aksharaya Namaha, Om Sarvaya Namaha, Om Vanamaline Namaha, Om Varapradaya Namaha, Om Vishwambaraya Namaha, Atudaya Namaha, Om Pavyaya Namaha, Om Shri Vishnave Namaha, Om Purushottamaya Namaha, Om Anagasraya Namaha, Om Nagasraya Namaha, Om Surya Jyotine Namaha, Om Sureswaraya Namaha, Om Sahasrabhavaya Namaha, Om Sarvajnaya Namaha, Sarvasiddhi Pradayakaya Namaha, Om Vajradamsaya Namaha, Om Mahadaya Namaha, Om Mahanandaya Namaha, Om Vallabhaya Namaha, Om Sarvamaikarupai Namaha, Om Sarvayadravidramaya Namaha, Om Sarvatantraatmakaye Namaha, Om Abhyaktaye Namaha, Om Subhyaktaye Namaha, Om Bhaktavatsaya Namaha, Om Vaisakasthilaputotaya Namaha, Om Saranagadavatsalaya Namaha, Om Udarakirtine Namaha, Om Niyatmaye Namaha, Om Mahatmaye Namaha, Om Savikramaye Namaha, Om Vedatriyaya Namaha, Om Pratyaya Namaha, Om Bhagavanaye Namaha, Om Parameswaraya Namaha, Om Kritsamgaya Namaha, Om Jagatyagine Namaha, Om Jaganmayaye Namaha, Om Jagatpalaye Namaha, Om Jagannathaye Namaha, Om Mahakaye Namaha, Om Trivirupapradaye Namaha, Om Paramatmaye Namaha, Om Paranjyotine Namaha, Om Nirgunaye Namaha, Om Nirkesirine Namaha, Om Paratataye Namaha, Om Parandamaye Namaha, Om Satchidana Vigrahaye Namaha, Om Lakshmi Narasimhaye Namaha, Om Sarvatmaye Namaha, Om Tiyaye Namaha, Om Praladanaye Namaha, Om Viram Mahaviram Jalandam Sarvadomham Narsimham Janparam Mrityu Namamyakam Sri Narsimha Sri Narsimha Jai Jai Sri Narsimha Dev Karladesa Jayatma Maharatma Prabha Namaste Narasimhaya Kalladaladarini Hiranyakasmi Purvakaha Srilankanakalaye Ido Narasimha Bhararo Narasimha Yado Yado Yami Tato Narasimha Pati Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Simhamadi Charanam Chakati Navakarakamadava.
Dandavats Maharaj, we can start the session, Maharaj. Everybody is assembled.
Yeah, but the share screen doesn't turn on.
Karunapti Prabhu, can you give host to Maharaj?
Hare Krishna, can you see this? Hare Bol.
Not yet, Maharaj. Not yet, Maharaj.
Oh, do we have to do this one?
Yeah,
Done,
Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Now it's
Yes.
visible, Maharaj.
That, okay?
Yeah, Maharaj. Yeah.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Srinivani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Vedic Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Just a minute, I got some call here from Chennai. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah. Huh?
There are no agendas so far.
Okay, so what do we do? Have a meeting or not have a meeting?
That's what I'm thinking. Only this Suicide Prabhu and then Kupalpalli and Narad kind of, and one more we can take is the EP election. Take it on online.
I don't know. He can ask Jabadaka Maharaj whether we can have an online election. I don't know. Good possible. This is a full meeting. This is a valid meeting we're having. Okay. I suppose you could then. Then you have to go for all nominations and all that. Then that's it. Just have a meeting and that's it. The one topic.
What I can do is that I can
Kartika Gaura, has there been an introduction done?
Not yet, Maharaj. Not yet, Maharaj.
Yeah. Just a minute. I'm having a call from Chennai. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, put some note on. The topics so far are not good topics. This is Bureau's handling one, and the other is a BBP.
Maybe we can mute Maharaj till Maharaj comes back.
I'm on the editorial, BBP editorial.
Karunapti Prabhu. Yeah,
Mute
thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, you can unmute Prabhu. Maharaj. Yeah.
Oops, where do we go here? This is just a summary of chapter 2 of the Bhagavatam, canto 2, sorry, of the Bhagavatam. We have 12 cantos, and generally we kind of get caught, get lost on where we're going through the canto. Even the first canto, for instance, is very important, but nevertheless, we kind of wander around because there's so many different topics, like the Bhishmadev and Kunti and Pariksha and Narada and Vyasa. It doesn't look like there's any unity in those topics. You get a little lost. So this is just giving an overview of the second canto. This is the first canto where Sukadev begins to speak before the Sutta Goswami is speaking. This is the first canto where Sukadev begins speaking. And this canto 2 is like a general introduction. In the Vishnu's commentary on the Bhagavatam, he generally associates the different cantos with different topics of the Bhagavatam. We have 10 topics such as Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, or Sthiti, Poshana, Uti, Manvantara, Mukti, Nirod, and Asraya. You got different topics. So from 3 to 12, he more or less covers those topics. The Asraya being the 10th topic, the 10th canto. And let's say third canto is Sarga. Second canto doesn't, first and second canto don't fit into the scheme. First canto, of course, is discussions to the origin of the Bhagavatam. And the second canto more or less has the important part. Here is the Sloki, the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam. So again, it's more or less introductory. And before that, the 4 verses, then we get some more introductory matter where Sukadeva discusses the different systems, and starting with the yoga system, which is in chapter 1. So in chapter 1, there's a description of the Vishwarup form, which is useful in meditation. Of course, it's not independently described, it's related to bhakti also. We know that the Vishwarup can be related to Krishna or any other form of the Lord, so it's not a separate type of meditation, it's related to bhakti, but it's mostly a meditation used by yogis who want liberation rather than personal association with the Lord. So there's a little bit of bhakti there, but it's more or less mostly yoga. So it's bhakti mirsa yoga. If it's the other way around and it's mostly bhakti with a little yoga in it, then we call yoga mirsa bhakti. So this is more predominantly yoga and less bhakti in it. And there's a description of the universal form, Vishwarupa. That's described here. It's also described in the 6th chapter. It's also described in the 10th chapter. So 3 times in this one canto, we get a description of the universal form with slightly different details. And then in the 3rd canto, we get 2 more descriptions of the universal form. Or even 3. So we get a lot of descriptions of this universal form within the Bhagavatam. And we may wonder what's the whole purpose of all of this. So in any case, one, of course, Vishwarupa, because the universal form has got senses, sense objects, devatas, etc. And this also relates to the body itself, our physical body. We have senses, we have sense devatas and sense objects, etc. So the structure of the universal form is reflected in the human body itself. So it's useful for meditation and also for developing yoga, which is meditation on the chakras within the material body. So one concept in that universal form is to locate all the planetary systems. Planetary systems are material, they're not spiritual. So therefore, we say that this form is not a spiritual form, it's a material form, but useful for meditation on the Lord. Related to the Lord, but it's not the spiritual form of the Lord. So on the top, we get Satyaloka, and then we get Tapaloka, Janaloka, etc., all the way down to Patalaloka. So that's one idea, that all of the planetary systems within the universe are parts of the body of the Lord. Then we have another idea, and that is that the body of the universal form has senses, and those senses perceive. But they can only perceive when there's a devata involved. So therefore, we have the eye, which is a knowledge gathering sense. And what does the eye see? It sees form. And what is the devata? The devata is the sun. So if the sun devata is operating properly and gives blessings, the eye can see. Okay? So similarly, we have the ear, and sound. The ear hears sound, but it cannot hear sound unless the devatas are pleased. So therefore, the 3 things go together: the ear, the devata, and the sound. Similarly, the tongue is for tasting, but it cannot operate in taste unless Varuna is operating nicely. And similarly, the voice is there for speaking words, and Agni is the devata. If we disturb Agni, then we cannot speak properly. We have the skin, and Vayu is the devata, and touch is the sense object. We have the arm, Indra is the devata, and grasping things, holding things is the sense object. We have the genital for reproduction, and Prajapati is the devata. We have the anus for excretion of waste matter, and Mitra is the devata. We have the feet, Upendra is the devata, and movement around. Walking is the we call the sense object. So in this way, the whole body of the universal form has different types of senses and devatas and sense objects. Now, if the thing is operating properly, then that universal form can see and hear and speak and walk and handle things, etc. So it can be active. Yeah, so we have this relationship between the devata, the sense, and the sense object or the tanmatra. So, chapter 2. Again, we have meditation on Paramatma. So this is another yogi's meditation, but this is not a material form. This is a spiritual form. Paramatma is not made out of material elements. He is a spiritual form who also exists in the spiritual world. So this is superior to the meditation on the Vishwarupa. So the Vishwarupa is meant for less advanced yogis who don't really have any idea of spiritual life, but it relates them to spiritual life because behind that universal form, we do have form. So when they get more advanced, then they can meditate on the Paramatma. So in this chapter also, Sukadeva Goswami speaks about the how the yogi gets liberation. This liberation is the impersonal liberation, merging the jiva into Brahman. First, you merge the lower material elements into the higher material elements, the subtle elements, and they go into Mahatattva into Prakriti into the jiva, and then jiva into Brahman. So what this means, the yogi separates himself from the material world, and then he merges in Brahman. So this is we call direct liberation. There's another type of liberation also described in the second canto. That's the gradual liberation, where you raise your life air to the top of the head. And there's a description in the Bhagavatam how it goes through the different chakras and the Muladhara chakra upward to the top of the head, and then you can escape from the top of the head, and then the jiva goes to Spargaloka, Mahaloka, Brahmaloka, through the layers of the universe, etc. And if he's successful, then he goes into Mahavishnu. So this is what we call Kramamukti, gradual liberation. Both, of course, we don't want to merge into Mahavishnu. We don't want to merge into Brahman. But this is the goal of some yogis. So these are the yoga systems described in these two chapters. So chapter 3 talks about karma yoga and the lower form of karma yoga. That's kama karma yoga. We do the follow the rules of varnashram, and we worship devatas to get material results. So this is the lowest form of karma yoga. People that want to enjoy in the material world. So we have in this chapter a description of many, many different devatas you can worship in order to get different material results. And we see these devatas often depicted on the temples in South India. And within the temples also. So I won't go into the details of who you worship to get what material benefit, because we're not interested in material benefits. Chapter 4. Sukadeva offers respects to the Lord. So this is simply some, we can say, prayers. Sukadeva is offering and showing devotion. So this is devotional prayers. And chapter 5, then we have a description of the Sarga, primary creation. This is the creation of the universe when Mahavishnu glances. So that's described here. It's also described again in the third canto. So it's also a very important subject matter from one point of view. That is, we understand that creation has its origin in the form of the Supreme Lord. It's not illusory, but it's real, and has a person behind it. So probably if you read this description, you may get a little confused, but this is the diagram. We have Mahavishnu at the top, and he has some subtle aspects of Maya, Shakti. One is time, another is Swabhav, which means nature, another is Daiva, which you can say is karma. And then we have the grosser aspects, which are also very subtle. That is Prakriti, which is invisible. And we have Mahatattva, which is visible. We have Sutra, which is the Rajagun form. And then Ahankara, which is the Tamagun form. Mahatattva is Sattvagun. So in combination with time energy, Mahavishnu glances over Prakriti and injects Jiva. And once that happens, we end up with Prakriti, which is the first visible manifestation. It's no longer avyakta, but very, very subtle. So here we have the Jiva combined with a very sattvic form of Prakriti. But now that imbalance has taken place in Prakriti, it again transforms into a Rajagun variety called Sutra. And then it goes into a Tamagun variety called Ahankara. Ahankara divides into three parts: the sattvic part, the rajasic part, and the tamasic part. So the sattvic part is called Gyan Shakti. The rajasic part is called Kriya Shakti, action. And the tamasic part is called Dravya Shakti, gross matter. They're also called Adidaiva, Adhyatma, and Adibhuta, or they're called Vaikarika Ahankara, Ajasa Ahankara, and Kamasa Ahankara. Three names for the same entity. So out of the sattvic portion of Ahankara, we get the mind and the deity, Chandra. And then we get the different devatas for the different senses. Out of the rajasic portion of Ahankara, Kriya Shakti, Adhyatma, or Taijasa Ahankara, we get intelligence, material intelligence, and the senses, the knowledge gathering senses and the action senses. Out of Tamasic Ahankara, we get the Tanmatras, which give rise to that's a sense object, giving rise to the material elements. So we get sound with ether, touch with air, form with fire, taste with water, and smell with earth. So in this way, we have all the elements of creation here manifested through the glance of Mahavishnu with the assistance of time and putting in the jivas, injecting the jiva. And of course, when the jivas are injected, they carry their karma from the previous cycle where the universes were present. So they have karma going along with them, or daiva, the jiva. And the ability to stick to the jiva, the karma, is called swabhava. So in this way, we have a description of the sarga, or the primary creation. Okay, so again, we have our description of the universal form. Then in chapter 7, we have a list of the avatars. In the first canto, Sutta Goswami gives a list of avatars, and that's the list in which we get Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, very, very important verse. Here in the second canto, again, we get a list of the avatars. So Brahma describes the Leela avatars. He adds a few more like Hayagriva and Hamsa. In chapter 8, we get questions by Parikshit Maharaj. And chapter 9, which is very important, we get the 4 verses that Brahma receives from the Supreme Lord. So these are the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Brahma does tapasya, austerity, and that austerity is meditation on the Lord, which is a type of bhakti. yoga. As a result of his bhakti yoga, the Lord reveals himself to Brahma. And then he gives him these 4 verses. So these are described elaborately by different acharyas. They all give very elaborate commentaries on these verses because they represent the seed of the Bhagavatam, within which we will get Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So the whole Bhagavatam is dedicated to the explaining these subject matters. So we get the Lord's form, the Lord, one Lord who is supreme, he's the cause of everything. That's Sambandha Gyan. We get Sadhana Bhakti, which is the Abhideya, and we get Prem Bhakti. So it begins with some questions of Brahma. So he asks about the spiritual material forms of the Lord in verse 26 and 27. He asks about Maya and Yoga Maya. In verse 28, he asks about how the Lord carries out his pastimes in relation to Maya and Yoga Maya. And in verse 29, he asks for instructions for attaining his desired goal. So these questions are answered in the 4 verses, but they are answered in a way which is a little bit hidden, so that materialistic people cannot understand the proper answer. So they require a little bit of study to understand what the answers actually are. So sometimes the important topics of Bhagavatam are hidden from the materialists, just as we don't see the gopis mentioned by name in the Bhagavatam, and Radha is not mentioned. So this is covered up intentionally, so the materialists don't get that knowledge. So here also the verses are written in such a way, or spoken in such a way, to hide the meaning. So the Lord begins by giving some introductory verses. Please understand the most secret knowledge of my form, along with realization of that form, and also Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, which will be spoken by me. By my mercy, may you attain perfect realization of whatever dimensions, intentions, forms, qualities, and pastimes I manifest. So this indicates that one should realize the real form of the Lord, the spiritual form, by direct perception, spiritual perception. And you can't get that unless you got prema. You can't get the prema unless you get the sadhana. So just to indicate the question again, oh Master, please bestow what is requested of me so I can understand the spiritual and material forms of you who have no material form. So arupina means non-material. And paravara means superior and inferior, spiritual and material form. So in answer to that, we get this famous verse. This is the first of those Chatusloki. I alone, who am non-different from Brahman, which is superior to all cause and effect, existed previous to creation of the universe. I alone exist as the universe after the creation of the universe, and I alone remain at the destruction. So this indicates the number one position of that Supreme Lord who is speaking to Brahma, that is Vishnu or Krishna. Okay? This statement is related to the Upanishads, because the Upanishads talk about in the beginning only Brahman existed. So who is that Brahman? So here, this is equated with that Supreme Lord. It's not impersonal, it is personal. So aham indicates that individual. It also indicates the Achinta Beta Beta. The Lord is the universe. He's also different from the universe. So the Lord can be the same as the universe because he produces the universe through his Shakti. And the Shaktiman are considered non-different. Therefore, God can say, I am the universe. I am everything. So in this verse, the Lord says, I existed previous to creation of the universe. I will remain at the destruction. So before, during, and after the creation, the Lord remains, and he doesn't change. So he is eternal. The manifestation of the material world is temporary, but the Lord is eternal. This is a spiritual form. When the Lord says, I alone existed, it indicates he has forms and activity. So that first verse, aham eva sam eva agre, I alone existed. So at that time, even Brahma could not perceive the Lord. The jivas were not present. At the same time, it doesn't mean that there was nobody there, because we have the spiritual world. The Lord is eternally in the spiritual world. He has the Nitya Siddha Jivas or the Sadhana Siddha Jivas there. So the Lord is not alone in that sense, but he is alone in the sense that nobody in the material world can perceive that. So the idea is that the Lord is non-different from his Shakti. He has his spiritual Shakti and the spiritual world. He has the material world and the material Shakti and the material world. So they're all non-different from the Lord. So he says, I am the universe. I am the spiritual universe. I am the material universe. Because his Shakti, non-different from himself. We also have some pramanas in this regard, such as the following. Vasudeva exists previous to the universe. Brahma and Shiva do not exist. The Lord is Narayana. Narayana alone existed. That's Brahma, Narayana Upanishad. So the second question is about Mahamaya and Yogamaya. Destroying, creating, and maintaining the material world composed of various energies by your material energy and manifesting your spiritual form by your own power. You perform pastime, just as a spider creates a web. Yeah. So in order to answer this question, we have two answers using the same verse. One to indicate Mahamaya, the other to indicate. So this is an example of concealing the meaning. So in one meaning of this verse, the Lord says, one should understand my material mind by whose power real objects are perceived through vidya and false objects are perceived through avidya, just as light reveals objects in darkness and hides them. Yeah? So both vidya and avidya are manifestations of the material world. That is, knowledge and ignorance manifest through the material world. Vidya manifests through sattva guna, but it is still part of the material world. But it gives real knowledge of things. World. It can also reveal the Atma. So this is the function of Mahamaya, to reveal or hide objects in this material world. So the second is the description of Yogamaya. One should understand my Yogamaya, by whose power some objects are revealed and some objects are hidden from a person who has realized the Lord, just as light reveals objects and darkness hides them. So it's a similar function of hiding and revealing objects. So just as Mahamaya has vidya and avidya, Yogamaya has avidya and avidya also. But there's also a little bit of a difference, because the Yogamaya exists in the spiritual world, not the material world. So within the pastimes of the Lord, we have objects revealed to the devotees and objects hidden from the devotees. They don't know everything. So that when they don't know something, that is the avidya aspect of Yogamaya operating. When they're aware of it, it's the vidya aspect operating. So in the spiritual world, we have a type of ignorance, but it is quite different from the material world. So in the spiritual world, that Yogamaya operates on the spiritual forms and within the spiritual activities. And the Mahamaya acts on material forms within material activities. Mahamaya produces suffering in the material world. Yogamaya produces bliss. So even the ignorance in the spiritual world creates some sort of bliss. So the Mahamaya acts favorably and partly unfavorably towards the jiva trying to attain knowledge and realization of Paramatma. So the favorable aspect of Maya is vidya, knowledge, and the unfavorable is the ignorance, avidya, which hides the form of the Supreme Lord and even the Atma. So after we realize Paramatma or Supreme Lord, then the Yogamaya function operates. And that Yogamaya, its ignorance and its knowledge are both favorable for the jiva in creating bliss. So the Yogamaya comes from the Lord's Sarup Shakti. The Mahamaya comes from the Mahamaya is the external energy of the Lord. So it's quite different from the internal energy of the Lord that Yogamaya is. Yeah. So an example is given of the snake and its old skin. So that old skin is compared to the material Shakti and you could say it's dead nature. We can also say that Yogamaya is the source of Mahamaya, just as we have rasas in the spiritual world, we have rasas in the material world, we have Yogamaya in the spiritual world, we have Maya in the material world. So the Mahamaya is like the snake skin, it's dead, no life in it at all, whereas the Yogamaya has got life. So within that Mahamaya, we get the Vidya aspect by which we realize Atma, we get knowledge, we get some sort of bliss, bliss of Brahman, and through Avidya, we end up with all sorts of illusion and limitation related to identifying the body as self. So though Avidya changes covers the knowledge of the jiva, it does not destroy objects. The objects remain, but they are subject to misconception. So nothing is ever destroyed. Everything is real. This is to show again the different aspect of vidya. Now vidya is like light, which we realize we're not in the body, we don't have any suffering, and destroys all darkness. Avidya is identification of the body. So it's like darkness. Okay, so that vidya is encouraged through processes of Jnana Yoga, Sankhya, Astanga Yoga, austerities, with a little bhakti. And through that, one can realize Atma. Then we have to give up the process of jnana, and we have a little bit of bhakti. This allows us to get impersonal liberation. If we can get the more mercy of the Lord, then we can realize Paramatma. So, Yogamaya. To understand my Yogamaya, by whose power some objects are revealed and some objects hidden from the person who has realized the Lord, just as light reveals objects and darkness. So, this Yogamaya in the spiritual world with a spiritual purpose. Mahamaya does not cover objects with any spiritual purpose at all. It's simply ignorant. Yogamaya has a specific function, such as in the pastime of Yasoda looking in Krishna's mouth. She saw universe. After seeing that, she forgot about it completely. Because she didn't want to think that Krishna was the Supreme Lord with the universe inside him. So she forgot about the whole incident. How did she forget? That's Yoga Maya. In order to show that Yasoda's love cannot be restricted by a show of Yoga's power, by Krishna's power, Yoga Maya revealed the material universe within his stomach, whilst simultaneously revealing the spiritual forms of Gokula, Yasoda, and Krishna. So Yoga Maya reveals how everything is in Krishna, and simultaneously the world is outside of Krishna. Bewildered by Yoga Maya, Yasoda perceived that, sees that, and after a moment did not perceive it, since Yoga Maya covered that realization. So she got perception through Yoga Maya, and then she got ignorance. She forgot everything. Similarly, Arjuna saw the universal form. So Yoga Maya revealed the form of the Vishwarupa. And in doing so, Arjuna didn't see the personal form of Krishna standing beside him. That knowledge was covered up. And then Krishna withdrew the form of that universal form. So that disappeared. That was covered over by Yoga Maya. And then he saw the two-handed form of Krishna. So Krishna was revealed, Krishna was hidden. Universal form was hidden, universal form was revealed, all by Yoga Maya. And then we have the case of Brahma. So, by Yoga Maya, showing sweetness and power, made the real calves and cowherd boys invisible, and showed calves and boys who were Krishna himself. So in other words, Brahma, when he came, he was looking at the calves and cowherd boys, and suddenly he saw it was all Krishna. So the calves and cowherd boys disappeared, and Krishna became visible. Then he saw the forms, and then they were disappeared. So this way, Krishna manifested, used Yoga Maya to bewilder Brahma. So by Yoga Maya, the Vishnu forms disappeared and showed the form of Krishna. So, then we have this question here. Material and spiritual pastimes. So give me the intelligence to understand how you perform material and spiritual pastimes. So material pastimes means that the Lord creates the material world. Spiritual pastimes means the activities of the Lord in the spiritual world. Just as elements enter into all beings and remain separate, I enter into all beings and remain separate when I perform my pastimes. In pastimes related to the material world, I remain detached. That is, the Lord creates everything, but he's completely indifferent. But in pastimes related to devotees, I am attached. So when the Lord enters into spiritual pastimes, like into Damodar Leela, Kaliya Mardana, then the Lord is attached to him. He's not detached. So the example was given of the elements. The elements enter into all beings and remain separate. So we have the fire element, it goes into the lamp, it goes into the forest fire, it goes into the yajna fire, it goes into the kitchen fire. It's also separate. So the Lord is like that. He's separate, and he's also in everything. So the Lord remains separate and unattached in terms of creation and all of the material world. But then the Lord is very, very attracted to his devotees. So therefore, the Lord says, I desire to show myself to my obedient devotees who have entered my heart, who have perfected themselves and bow to me. Separate, not entering their hearts, I offer my beauty to their eyes by showing my form. So in other words, the Lord shows externally a form because of affection. I desire my fragrance enter their nostrils and desire to fill their ears with the nectar of my sweet voice, speaking with them and answering them. I desire to make their limbs experience the sweet softness of my body by touching and embracing them. So here the Lord is completely involved with this. So the last is a question about sadhana and prema. Without lethargy, may I carry out instructions on how to worship you as given by you, because by your mercy alone will I not be bound by false ego when I carry out the creation. So Brahma is speaking about creating the material world, so he wants some instruction. So this verse again has hidden meaning to it. The person desiring to know the best sadhana and prema must learn by surrender to Guru. Sadhana is determined as the best by positive results through performance, lack of results through non-performance, by being possible to perform at all times in all places. So the best sadhana will manifest nice results, and if you don't practice it, you don't get the results. And the sadhana should be flexible enough that you can do it any time and any place. Yeah. So what are positive effects of bhakti yoga? The person desiring destruction of all desires, the person with all desires, even the person with the intense desire for liberation, who has good intelligence, will worship the Supreme Lord with pure bhakti. So everybody gets nice results, whether you have material desires or no material desires. Positive effect. And what happens if you don't practice bhakti? I offer continual respects to the Lord, full of auspicious qualities, without worshiping him. The Gyanis, Karmis, specialized Karmis, yogis, scholars of the Vedas, and followers of proper conduct can attain any benefit. If you don't worship the Lord, you get zero. Now, is sadhana bhakti the best in terms of conditions, in terms of time? Karma is practiced only until one attains detachment. When we get attached, we give up karma yoga and we do jnana. Yoga is practiced until one has attained siddhis. When you get your siddhis, you give up the practice of yoga. Sankhya is performed only when one has attained, until one has attained knowledge. We analyze everything. When we get the knowledge, finished. Jnana is performed only to liberation. When we get liberation, we give up the process of jnana. So in other words, these processes are not practiced at all times. Practice is a sadhana, but not when we get the result. But bhakti is practiced in sadhana and in prema, in all places, at all times. Bhakti is practiced by everybody. It's practiced by devotees, but it should also be practiced by karmis and gyanis. It can be performed by even the most fallen people, the most sinful people. Bhakti can be practiced in all stages of life. It can be practiced in the womb, as Prahlad did. It can be practiced when you're a child, as Dhruva did. It can be practiced at youth, Ambarish did. It can be practiced even in hell. So in all stages of life and in all places, that makes it the highest process. There's another meaning of this verse. The person desiring the highest truth will experience rasa, which produces bliss through meeting and separation, and continues in all places. So this is a verse which is giving not a sadhana meaning, but a rasa meaning, prema meaning. So one experiences rasa, and you get bliss through meeting and separation. And this is an eternal state. Among all things desired to be known, one should desire the highest realization of rasa, which will be tasted in dasya, sakya, vatsalya, and shringar rasas by direct contact and in separation, in all places, all universes, places of beloved, in the presence of servants, friends, elders, gopis, at all times, continually, even after the dissolution of the universe. It's eternal in all places, all time. So by the mercy of Guru, we get bhakti, that turns into prema, that turns into rasa, and within that we feel separation and like that. There's a third meaning for the Gyanis. Person desiring to know the truth about Atma should seek out Atma, which exists in all places at all times, perceived directly in the universe, which is non-different from the Atma, and the Atma. So this is referring to perception of Atma alone, in and outside everything. So that, as I said, that chapter is important because it has those 4 seeds of the Bhagavatam, defining the Supreme Lord, that's number 1 person, and defining the processes of sadhana bhakti and prem bhakti, sadhana bhakti, and then finally giving prem bhakti, we saw in the last verse, which also discussed about rasa. So in the 10th chapter, then again, we get a description of the Vishwarupa, and here we get a list of the characteristics of the different Purana, which will appear later in the end of the Bhagavatam as well. So here we have Sarga Visarga, Sthana Poshana Uti, Manvantara, Nirodha, Mukti. This is that list. And then throughout the Bhagavatam, these different topics will appear. So in the 3rd canto, we get Sarga. 4th canto, we get Visarga. The 5th canto, we get Sthana, the geography of the universe. 6th canto, we get Mercy of the Lord, Poshana, and discussing about Prahlad and Hiranyakasipu and Nrsimhadev. That's 6th, we get the story of Ajamil. He was protected by the Lord by chanting the name accidentally. And then in chapter Canto 7, we get impressions of Jiva, that is, bad Jivas like Hiranyakasipu, and then the saintly persons like Prahlad. 8th canto, we get the story of the Manus, Manvantara. And in Canto 9, we get a list of more avatars called Isha Anupata. In chapter 12, or Canto 12, we get Nirodha, destruction of the universe. And in Canto 11, we get description of Mukti, or liberation. And Canto 10, we get Asraya, the ultimate shelter of everything, all the other topics are Asraya, or Krishna. So that's in the 10th. So that ends this 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Any question there?
Maharaj, I have a question. Shall I ask Maharaj?
Yeah.
I have some few questions, Maharaj. First of all, I thank you for your wonderful and kind association giving through some. My question, Maharaj, you were describing about Mahamaya and Yogamaya.
Yeah.
And you described to us that Mahamaya creates suffering and Yogamaya gives bliss. When we are in the process of Krishna Bhakti, practicing Krishna consciousness, I think Mahamaya is also a servant of Krishna. But personally, I've also heard that sex desire is the topmost and highest pleasure that is in the material world. But when we are trying to practice Krishna Bhakti, why can't Mahamaya can't help us to reach Krishna instead of creating such suffering?
Mahamaya acts as a servant of the Lord, and generally she's implements the law of karma for the jivas. So as long as we have karma, then we get that suffering. Now, we know that bhakti destroys all karma. In the nectar of devotion, the first characteristic of bhakti is kleshagni, that bhakti destroys all suffering. So that means avidya is destroyed, desires are destroyed, and karmas are destroyed. So that means all your suffering is gone. The influence of Maya is completely eradicated by the process of bhakti. So that is how Krishna operates. So we can say that when we perform bhakti, then Maya acts favorably for the jiva and withdraws her law of karma or whatever. That's how Maya acts favorably for the devotee. When we perform bhakti, then she withdraws her influence. So karma is destroyed.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. But one more doubt.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maharaj, you said that the karma yogi, once he gets that detached from the karmic activities, he'll get out of it. And I heard that even a nishkama karma yogi has a chance of liberation. If he gets a liberation, where he'll go? What is his destination?
Yeah, well, the nishkama karma yogi ultimately means he practices karma yoga, but he's in sattva gun. So if he becomes really pure and completely detached from those activities, then again, he can get into that impersonal liberation.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
But the only way you can go to the spiritual world is pure bhakti. If you mix bhakti, even then you don't get the good result. Only by pure bhakti to prema.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have one question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maharaj, when you are explaining about Vidya and Avidya in Yogamaya also, and also Avidya in larger scale in Mahamaya, and you have given one slide that like one lamp is giving the light and the object of flower is being shown. And at the same time, Avidya stage, the lamp is not shown, means glowing and object is there. So in one case that actually Avidya means, shall we say that it is a forgetfulness of the original objects, or it's totally absence of the objects, knowing the objects?
Yeah, objects don't disappear due to ignorance. They just have a misconception. So we can see a table. So we see a table like this, whatever, but we're seeing that under a conditional state. We see the table because we can sit down and take a meal, or we can put our computer on the table or whatever like that. That's how we see the table. But that's not the actual table. Is subject to our condition. If an ant sees the table, it will see something else. If a dog sees a table, he'll see something else. So the table is real, but it's covered with all sorts of misconceptions. So it doesn't disappear, it's there in spite of our ignorance, but it changes. It's appears according to the jiva perceiving it. That's all.
So in one case, for example, I am sitting in a room, in a dark room where there is a light and there is an object which I can see during the light on. And so all of a sudden the light goes, then object is there, but I cannot be able to see that object. That does mean that it is we are again in the ignorance or avidya.
Yeah, so it's still there. The object is still there. So even though the light is not on, the object is there. So when we're in ignorance, the object is here. It doesn't disappear, but it's the misconception of the object. That's all.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Of course, Buddhism says that there is no object, only a perception of things that creates the world. Momentary perception of things creates all the objects in this world. So, but they're actually not real. So you get nirvana, everything disappears. So for us, the objects are real, and they may be subject to ignorance or enlightenment.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. But the person who realized Paramatma, what is his destiny? Because Bhakta
Yeah.
has the destiny of Goloka Vrindavana or Vaikuntha. What about the Paramatma realized person?
Some of the Paramatma yogis may merge into the effulgence of Paramatma. That means impersonal again. Some of the Paramatma yogis, they merge into Paramatma, also impersonal. So generally, they are impersonalists. If they get the association of a devotee when they're practicing, then they can go beyond yoga and become devotees. Then they can advance to spiritual world. Even then, because of the influence of yoga or even jnana, they'll get Shantarasa. If they're very fortunate, like Sukadeva Goswami, then you could get high rasa, like Madhurya rasa. But you have to start bhakti process.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned about we can practice means bhakti in hell also. Like when we go to hell because of forgetfulness of Krishna, how we can do remembrance in hell?
Well, there are many hellish planets, just below the earth. We got Atala, Vitala, etc. And some of those planets, many of them are called Bila Svarga, subterranean heavenly planets. So down at Vitala Loka, there's enjoyment. Atala, there's some enjoyment also. Even in Patala Loka, where Yamaraj resides, he's got a nice palace there. So he enjoys very nicely. So it's not that everybody suffers, but they're in those planetary systems, the general population is in deep tamas, and their enjoyment is all tamasic. But then we do have devotees there. So Prahlada's on Vitala, Vamanadev is down there also. Bali Maharaj is there also. And then we have Yamaraj down in on Patala Loka. And they're devotees of the Lord. So there are all these locals, even the lowest hellish planet, we got devotees.
Maharaj, our apologies for not welcoming you at the start of the program, Maharaj. So His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj is a GBC member of ISKCON and a senior disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj is a GBC for Tamil Nadu, along with His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, and specifically he is in charge of Western Tamil Nadu and Coimbatore, along with His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj. Maharaj is a prolific author and publisher of many books. This program on the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam was specifically for the students of the Bhaktivedanta Academy and for the Bhakti Vaibhava course being conducted by the Bhaktivedanta Academy Coimbatore. Many other devotees have also joined this program. Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj could not join. Being a Sunday, he had a parallel program. He offered his respects and obeisances to you, Maharaj.
Okay.
We look forward to seeing you again during the Janmashtami celebrations, if not earlier, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your association and for your valuable time. It's been a honor, Maharaj, to hear from you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Bhanu Swami Maharaj
Hare
ki
Krishna Maharaj.
Jai.
Very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam, Jai. Dandavad Pranam, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam.